Hello everyone, and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. A few days ago, I was playing Destiny and I was kind of bored. So I decided that I was going to hop into the Whisper of the Worm mission and see if I could still solo it. I used to solo it every now and then just for shits and gigs, but I haven't been in that mission in about a year. So I wanted to just jump in kind of blind with meta weapons and see if I could personally still do it. And I did. It was a very scuffed run, but I managed to do it with, a couple minutes left on the clock, no big deal. But it got me thinking, with this huge influx of new players that we have on new platforms even, how many people don't have Whisper of the Worm as of right now? My guess would be quite a bit. And even for those of you who do have Whisper of the Worm, maybe you still need to finish the Catalyst. Maybe you're trying to get the ship. Maybe you just want to get into solo challenges, and Whisper of the Worm's mission is a very good introduction to that. If you fall into any of those categories and you would like to solo the Whisper of the Worm mission, stay tuned, my friends, because that's what this video is about. Here is a noob's guide to soloing the Whisper mission. So first things first, you need to activate the mission. To activate the normal version of the Whisper mission, you need to head to Lost Oasis on Io and wait for any public event to start. It used to be only tied to the Taken Blight public events, but now the portal will spawn with any public event in the Lost Oasis area. When a public event starts, a secret Taken boss will spawn in one of 3 possible locations. You will sometimes have to check all 3 locations to find the boss, but usually it does not take long. It's also worth noting that you don't have to worry about doing the actual public event, you just need to go find the boss. This is one of them up here on this ledge. You can find one of the bosses in these 3 locations. The location that you just saw me go to up here on this ledge, right around the corner in that little alley looking thing, or canyon, whatever you want to call it. And lastly, down inside a cave where that Taken Knight usually spawns. Now you should go ahead and rally the flag so that you can make sure that you have all the ammo that you need when the time comes. Feel free to burn your super here on this Taken champion guy, I guess, because your super will not come with you once you start the mission, but your ammo typically does. Once you've killed the boss, you will see this portal spawn up on a ledge. You walk up to it, hold the interact button, and you will be teleported inside the mission. Once you land in the mission, you will see a timer of 20 minutes begin to tick down on the left-hand side of your screen. Once this timer runs out, that's it. You're done, you're sent back to Io, and you have failed the mission. If you are able to kill all 3 bosses in the final room before this timer runs out, you will not only get Whisper of the Worm, but you will also unlock the heroic version of the mission, where you can go back and get the ship, as well as the catalyst for the weapon. Whisper of the Worm itself is still a very good exotic weapon. It's kind of overshadowed right now by things like Izanagi's in terms of DPS, but Whisper is kind of like that Swiss Army knife, you want it in your toolbox all the time, just in case. So let's talk about strategies. Now, I'm doing this on a Titan, and I am using Lion Rampant, so you're going to see me make some pretty ridiculous jumps in this video. If you do have a Titan, I would recommend using a Titan. I personally think that it's the best character to solo this mission on, not only because of the jumping puzzle part with Lion Rampant, but also because you have a bubble if you need it, and you have some other things that will keep you alive in Top Tree Sentinel. Now, the jumping puzzle is a very important aspect of this. You want to get through the jumping puzzle in under 4 minutes. That is your goal. You want to get to enemies in under 4 minutes. That leaves you 16 minutes to deal with the ads, which is a comfortable amount of time. If you're taking 10 minutes in the jumping puzzle, and then you have 10 minutes to get through, I think it's 4 or 5 rooms of ads, you're going to be stressing, man, and that clock is going to be ticking down the entire time, and it's not going to work well for you. So it's very important that you learn the layout of the jumping puzzle, and that you learn how to do it very quickly. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, this gameplay footage that you're watching right now is my first time trying to solo this in probably well over a year. I could have went back in here a couple of times after I did it the first time and got a more polished gameplay, something that looks a little bit more impressive, but I didn't want to do that. The reason being is because if you're watching this video and you need a guide on how to solo the Whisper mission, chances are you are not some crazy top tier player like Glad or Esoteric. Like, you're not going to be able to replicate a flawless run, and I don't mean that as an insult, I just mean that as, being realistic. So I chose to use my first run here, where I think I died 10 or 11 times, and, you know, kind of swap my loadouts on the fly because I really didn't know what was going to be best. The sandbox has changed quite a bit since the last time I soloed this. So I just grabbed a bunch of weapons out of my vault and went in and was like, fuck it, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what I can do. I wanted to use this gameplay because it is scuffed. I do die a lot, and I want you guys to know that you don't have to be perfect in order to do this. I feel like that deters a lot of people from doing these solo challenges. They see people like Esoteric and people like Glad and Error and, you know, all these other crazy good PvE players come in here and solo this entire mission in like 8 minutes, and it's intimidating, you know, because as an average player or even a slightly above average player, you're seeing these god tier players come in here and absolutely make a mockery of this mission, and you're like, I can't do that. There's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to do that. So I wanted to have a more realistic gameplay in this guide. Something that more people could relate to, I guess. Now, let's talk about your subclasses. Now, I'm on a Titan. I'm using Middle Tree Sentinel here because the little void detonators chain void detonators to other enemies nearby, and it's really good for things like the Thrall that you see right here. Now, I do change my loadout, and I think I changed my subclass to Bubble a little bit later on in the video, but it's solid. Like, any of the top 2 Sentinel builds are going to be okay. You could also get away with something like Bottom Tree Striker if you wanted to use it more for ad clear, but the problem with that is there's a lot of void shields in the room after this one, and there's not a lot of arc shields until the end. So if you want to use your super as a way to destroy shields, then void really is your best bet. There are a couple of solar shields in here too. We'll talk about shield types here in just a minute, but yeah, I personally wouldn't use a solar subclass in here unless you were on Warlock using Well of Radiance, which brings me to Warlock. Well of Radiance or Devour Nova Bomb, I think, are the 2 plays here. And for Hunters, I would say you're pretty much going to be either top or bottom tree Orpheus Rig Tether. So those are pretty much the options, in my opinion. And circling back to Titan, I think that Doomfang Pauldron is going to be your best bet if you are doing the the Void subclass. You'll see here in just a second, I clear pretty much the entire second room with 1 super because Doomfang is kind of busted right now. It's really strong. It's really good. So now, let's talk weapons and shield types on the enemies. For the first room with enemies, the one that you just saw me clear, you will only see non-shielded enemies and solar captains. For this second room, I count this little bitty room here as its own room, you will see the same. It's solar captains and non-shielded enemies. However, when you get into the third room, which is the one after this, you will have a combination of void shields and solar shields. Pretty much everything in that room, with the exception of a few vandals, has a shield. It is predominantly void shields, and I think that there are 4 solar shields, so keep that in mind. You want to have all 3 elements in your inventory ready to go. So what I did is I had a solar xenophage for these solar captains that you just saw me take out. If you have xenophage, it like 2 or 3 taps these dudes. It's actually insane how quickly it tears through the shields. Your super will tear through the shields if you want to go the Doomfang route like I am and clear the entire room in 1 super. But if you aren't lucky enough to be on a Titan, then Void is going to be the one that you want to clear the most with a Solar Heavy for the captains. The Solar captains are pretty beefy. The Void guys that have the Void shields, with the exception of the Wizards, are relatively easy to take out. They're mostly Acolytes and things like that. For the Void Wizards, though, they are orange bars like the Solar Captains, so keep that in mind. What I would recommend here is a Void energy weapon, something like a Recluse, something like a Mananan, or pretty much anything, honestly. You're only using it really to tear down shields. That's your main goal with the energy weapon. Solar Heavy, something like Xenophage or something like an Avalanche will work just fine to tear down those Captain Solar shields. And then have a good primary, something like a Pulse Rifle or, you know, even a hand cannon to finish them off once the shield is taken down. Now, as we progress onto this 4th room, this is the one right before the boss, I would recommend killing everything here, because if you leave some of these taken thrall alive, it will actually cause you to spawn further back if you die in the boss room. But if you kill everything here before you drop down, then it will spawn you right back here, and it makes things a little bit easier for you. Now, when you're in this room, because, you know, these are just little taken scions or whatever, and they're nothing special, you want to take the opportunity to go ahead and farm for ammo if you need it. So put on, you know, that special finisher or that heavy finisher and use that while you're in this room. You want to make sure that you have arc weapons ready. That's something that I forgot to do when I dropped down because it's been a while since I've been in here. But yeah, if you have something like a loaded question, that's going to be really good for when you drop down and have to face those arc shield centurions, I think is what you call them. But yeah, this is a good area for farming ammo, and like I said, you want to make sure that you kill everything because it will lock in your spawn point to be right here by the hole. So that's something to keep in mind. As you drop down, you will see these blights all over the place. You want to try to take out as many of those as you can. The reason being is because they will just get in your way whenever you're trying to deal with the boss. So you want to prioritize these before you even go for the ads and stuff. Now, I tried to just go straight for these guys because they were in my way, and it was a mistake. I should have just went ahead and kept going for the blights, the one that I'm at right now, as well as the one back in the back of the room, because that's one that actually controls the boss spawns. So keep that in mind. Once you clear all these guys, you get rid of the blights, then it's time to go on to boss damage. Now, when you get to the boss fight, it's pretty hectic. It really is. There's 3 bosses that spawn, a Taken Captain, a Taken Knight, and a Taken Centurion. The Centurion sends those little Axion darts at you like that guy just tried to do. The Knight throws fire at you, and the Captain throws those Blight Balls at you. I always prioritize the Captain that throws the Blight Balls because I feel like he's the most annoying out of the 3. The other 2 are pretty manageable, and they're pretty easy to avoid getting hit by their abilities, but that Captain is an asshole, so I always prioritize him. That's him that just came running out. He comes out first. So once the Captain is out, you can do one of 2 things. You can either just focus solely on the Captain, or you can go ahead and destroy the other 2 Blights and have all 3 bosses spawn. I like to just go ahead and get all 3 bosses out so that I can go ahead and go to one of my safe rooms, which is either one of the caves on the left or right side of the map, or the big open area where you first drop down. Those are your 3 quote-unquote safe areas. Now, you'll see here that I'm switching to Polaris Lance. Back in the day, when I was still soloing this regularly and running this mission for fun, Polaris Lance was actually really good in here for boss damage, because you could just shoot forever and not have to worry about picking up ammo. Polaris Lance actually kind of sucks in here now, and I wouldn't recommend it. One weapon that I did find to be very useful in here for boss damage, that is a primary weapon and you don't have to worry about ammo for, is Outbreak Perfected. If you have Outbreak Perfected, I would definitely recommend using that as your primary. It actually did decent damage to the boss, and ammo was not a concern whatsoever. Whenever you get your super back, whether you are a Titan, Warlock, or Hunter, you want to use it accordingly. You want to be smart with it. You don't want to just waste it. So use it, you know, to kill ads or whatever. Maybe you're trying to gather up some ammo. Use it on the boss. Use it for whatever, like to keep yourself alive. Just make sure that you don't waste it. You want to use your super in a smart way here because, like I said, ammo is going to be scarce, and every enemy in this room is going to be focusing solely on you. Sniper rifles with triple tap are going to be really good in here for boss damage as well, but you also want to keep in mind that you are still going to have elemental shields. You're still going to have like Acolytes with Void, Minotaurs with Void, Centurions with Arc, I think Captains with Solar. Like, you're still going to have all 3 of the elements that you've had to break shields for leading up to this point in here during the boss fights. Now, the good thing is whenever you kill a certain boss, that boss's ad set also goes away with them. So, for example, whenever you kill the big Taken Captain boss, then his little Taken Captains that also throw Blight Balls will stop spawning. Same goes for the big Knight and shit. I think the Knight has the Minotaurs, and I think the Centurion also has little Centurions. I think that's how it works. So keep that in mind. You're still going to be swapping elements, so it might be worth it to just stick to an elemental primary in your energy slot. So something like that Recluse, and then swap to an Oxygen SR4, and then swap to a Nation of Beast. You won't lose ammo when you swap to primaries as long as you don't do it a whole lot back to back to back. So that's something to keep in mind. The final loadout that I ended up using that was actually really useful, really good in here, was Outbreak Perfected in my kinetic slot, a Loaded Question fusion rifle in my energy slot, and a 21% delirium in my heavy slot. Now in hindsight, I would have went with something else in my heavy slot, either a Void machine gun or a solar machine gun, because I already had the Loaded Question that was giving me the arc damage, so I didn't need to double down on that. I would have swapped to something else, probably an Avalanche, something solar since my subclass is Void. Ideally, you want to have a little bit of everything. You can also do something like a kinetic with osmosis. So like the new sidearm that the Vanguard just came out with, you damage an enemy with a grenade, and then your kinetic takes on whatever element that grenade was. So if you have a Void grenade, then you now have a Void primary. It's really cool. I really like that. Something like that's going to be great. You don't need to use high-end weapons in here. It's all about persistence. It's all about always shooting. Like, that's what you want to do. You just want to constantly be shooting something. You don't want to stop unless you need ammo. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people end up making, and including myself. I do it a couple of times in this video. Like right now, I just go running around like, oh, let me try to find a better spot or something, and it doesn't work, and I'm just running around like a jackass. But yeah, just keep being persistent. I mean, you can see how scuffed this run was. Like, you can really tell that I was trying out different loadouts while I was in here. I was trying to get a feel for things, and I wasn't getting a good feel for it because, like I said, the sandbox is very different now than it was back when I was actually soloing this regularly. So I was very uncomfortable doing this. Like, I wasn't in my comfort zone. I was out of my element, and it shows. But I still managed to do it with, I think, 2 minutes left or something like that. So it's important to realize and remember that you don't have to be perfect. You can be really bad in here and die a bunch and it not be the end of the world, and you'll be okay. Like, you can still do this. So I think that that's something that a lot of people lose sight of, and that's something that a lot of people get tied up with. They start overthinking it, they start doubting themselves, they die a couple of times back to back to back, they get frustrated. This is a lot like soloing the Shattered Throne or soloing the Pit of Heresy, which I've made a guide about the Shattered Throne before. You just need to take your time. You need to be patient. You need to let things happen and just be persistent. And if you're able to do that, you can solo anything in this game that is soloable. I promise you. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys. If you're able to do this, congratulations, man. You're an elite company. I would say that maybe 5 to 7% of the entire player base is able to solo this. Regardless of power level, like, these guys still hurt. I'm 990 in this video, and they still just absolutely melt me. And they're still very tanky and have a ton of health. So I feel like your power level doesn't really matter all that much in here, because it feels the same as when I did it a year ago, when I was, in the 600s, or the year before that when I was in, the 300s or whatever it was. But yeah, if you're able to do this, like I said, you're an elite company. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope this video helps you out. The commentary portion of this video will now come to an end, but feel free to stick around and watch the last few minutes of gameplay while I finish off these bosses. If you enjoyed this video, click like. If you are new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.